Inspiring interviews with today's top landlords. This is the Rental Income Podcast. And now, Dan Lane.
Saad, do I have this right? You got started buying rentals by accident.
Yeah, I actually got into it by accident. So one of my family members, who's a big real estate investor, recommended that I don't sell my first house that I had when I was moving into a second house and rent it out. And so I took his advice and actually became a landlord on my first property that I had. And I saw the potential of that after just a few months of seeing how much rental income I could generate from that one property. And that got me really excited. And, pair that with my personal motivation to really provide a retirement income for my parents, I decided to really go all in and build out a larger real estate portfolio.
His strategy is actually pretty interesting. What he's doing is he's buying a single family house and then chopping it up and turning it into either a duplex or a triplex. So now that one single family house has 3 income streams, and he's doing this all remotely. Saad lives in Atlanta and he's buying rentals in Philly. So on the show today, we're going to learn more about what he's doing and see how everything's working out doing this remotely. Joining us on the show today is Saad Dar. We'll take a really quick break to thank our sponsors. We'll come right back and we'll talk to Saad. Time is our most valuable asset. If you don't have enough time in the day, you might be spending too much time on low leverage activities. Things like managing properties can take up a ton of time and give you a very low return. Take your time back and use it to do activities that'll make you more money. I want to let you know about a cheaper and better way to manage your rental portfolio. It's with a virtual professional from Worker Gen X. They can handle repair requests, make sure your rent's collected, help you track expenses for tax time, handle inquiries when you have a turnover. Pretty much everything that needs to be done, they can handle. They do the work. You get your time back. You also won't need to spend your time training your professional. Worker Gen X has employees that are trained and ready to hit the ground running for you. You can find out more at workergenx.com. That's worker, WORKERGENIX.com. Workergenx.com. It's a lot of work to find a really good rental property, and when you actually find that property, you want to make sure you're working with a lender that can get that loan closed. The lender that I recommend is Chaley Ridge from Ridge Lending Group. She's a nationwide lender, and her specialty is helping investors finance rental properties. She has a ton of loan programs, and she can find something customized to you for your situation. If you want to find out more or you're ready to get started today, just go to ridgelendinggroup.com. That's RIDGE lendinggroup.com. NMLS 42056.
Rental Income Podcast.
Saad, let's start off talking about your portfolio. What does your portfolio look like?
Absolutely. I've got, my partner and I, we've got 20 units, which are a mix of long-term and short-term, midterm. Most of those are long-term properties, which are 1 to 2 units, and they're all located in Pennsylvania and Philly.
Now, you live in Atlanta, and with your rentals being in Philly, how did that happen? Like, why did you buy property so far away?
Yeah, I actually recently moved to Atlanta, so I'm originally from New York and lived in New Jersey for the last 5-6 years. So my partner and I decided to invest in Philly, which was about an hour and a half away. So we've always been out-of-state landlords, and we had to set up a lot of systems and processes to make sure we can actively manage and, effectively manage the portfolio from afar.
Okay. All right. So you were living in New York. Philly's not too far away. So was it just more affordable to buy in Philly versus buying in New York?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
As a newer investor, it's a lower cost and less riskier way to go, especially when you're starting out to learn. And Philly, was the closest market, which had a really attractive rent to, total invested capital ratio. And that's why we decided to go to Philly.
Did you know much about investing in Philly or much about the Philly market before you started buying there?
Not at all. I'd actually only been there a few times. So one of my neighbors put me onto it because he was a real estate agent and he was looking into Philly. So when my partner and I were looking into which geographies to focus on, we spent a lot of time going to Philly, meeting with local realtors and other investors to really research the market and the neighborhoods and even at the street level to figure out which blocks made more sense. And that probably took a good 3 to 5 months of
Wow.
research to really figure out how to get started there.
So what were you looking for? Like what was like the ideal neighborhood or the ideal investment?
Originally, we wanted to focus on areas near universities. For example, Temple University in Philly. What we found very quickly is that we were kind of late to the game and priced out because a lot of builders had already come in. So then we had to pivot and figure out another plan. And what we decided to do was start with, the first, let's say, 5 deals where we're focusing on lower cost investments. Really, purchase price was under 75K, sometimes even 50K, and doing full gut renovation. So we follow the BRRRR methodology, and we got really attractive appraisals on those deals. And we supplied amazing, fully renovated mid-range, not low-level finishes in neighborhoods that were, let's say, C plus at best. So that's how we started.
Wow. Wow. I mean, that just sounds so complicated. I mean, to be out of state and researching another area and then buying a property and doing a rehab to it, did it feel overwhelming to do that, or maybe even stressful to have that going on without you physically being in the same town?
Absolutely. It was incredibly challenging at first. And even now, there are days where we have some difficulties, but it's really about relationships, I would say, and also setting up the right systems. So relationships is key because we need to have the right team on the ground, whether it is your folks that are bringing you the deals with the wholesalers, the real estate agents, other investors. That's really important. And the biggest one for us after that was our contractor. And we actually tried several contractors in Philly that were local, but we had bad experiences and we learned from that and ended up actually convincing somebody from New York to open a satellite team in Philly and help us do the rehab that we were doing at that
Wow.
scale.
That's
So
pretty
that's how we've
awesome.
been operating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so did your realtor, the realtor that you met initially, did that agent end up helping you, or did you find a different realtor?
We had to make changes. So initially, it was hard to find people that real estate agents that were focused on investors and that could actually help,
Hmm.
and that was a good part of their business. And if you see that they're not really active and they don't do a lot of deals with investors, it might not be a good fit. So we ended up
Yeah.
actually switching several times. It took like 4 or 5 tries to get to the right person.
Now, one thing you're doing that I think is pretty unique is that you're buying single families and turning them into duplexes. Tell me about how that works.
Absolutely. So we kind of accidentally came up on this opportunity because we noticed that when we look at the zoning requirements, there are properties that are being used as SFR, single family homes, that are zoned for a duplex or a triplex. And that's kind of our niche. We started focusing in on that and we got comfortable with the process of buying those at super low cost, renovating the entire thing into 2 apartments or 3 apartments, and getting them rezoned. And technically, it's not really a rezoning; it's just a update to the paperwork that allows us to say, okay, this is now officially a duplex with the city.
Those properties are like they're kind of set up to become a duplex, or is that a big process you have to go through?
Yeah, it really depends on the project. Sometimes, the lot size is really important as well as the building, length and width and height of the ceilings, for example. So it really depends. Most of the time, we're able to do it, and we don't actually go into deals where we are unable to convert it into duplexes or triplexes because we already kind of know, what the square footage is that we
Yeah.
need. Because you can imagine you need an entrance, you need a staircase to go upstairs for the separate unit, right? You need all of those things, and
Right.
so it comes down to the building level. But if there's zone for a multi, usually it works out. And sometimes the building is too small, which requires a long variance process, so we don't go for those.
Wow. I mean, that's really pretty awesome. So if you had kept these properties as single families, would they not work? Like, would it not cash flow because you only had that one tenant in there?
You could do SFRs there, but then you're going to just make a lot less money. So we realized that if we took on the burden and the challenge of doing the renovations that we do and repositioning these into duplexes or triplexes, then we could generate a lot more cash flow per door. Because again, there is a minimum, that you're going to have to charge anyway for a small apartment. And so we could share some details, but yeah, that was the approach because it generates a lot more cash flow per door.
Yeah. Well, let's take a look at one of these deals and see how the numbers work. So tell me about this property.
Yeah, I'll call this deal the squatter house deal because we really took a risk of buying it actually from a friend of mine who was a wholesaler that brought the deal to us. And it was occupied by two tenants that did not want to leave. It turned out that the title was clean and that the owner was just, older, looking to retire and had family in the property that was not paying rent for a long time. And the properties had gone, deteriorated. There was mold growing. There was roof leaks, all kinds of things going on. And so we decided to purchase it all cash for $80,000. And the unique thing is we kind of we paid cash for keys. We paid each squatter $3,000 to give us the keys and leave. And so overall, we spent $80,000 for the purchase price. We spent about $205,000 for the renovation. So again, imagine these are full gut renovations, and that equals about $285,000 of overall cash invested.
And was this property a single family or was this a duplex when you bought it?
So there were two different buildings that were bought for $80K total, and each of them was zoned to be able to be a duplex, but they were being used as single family homes.
Okay. All right. So you got these two properties. So you had two tenants in there. You did the rehab and you turned it into 4 rentals.
Yes. 4 units. Yes.
Okay. And you bought this property for $80,000?
Yep. We bought it for $80,000 cash plus the $6,000 for the squatters.
Now, is that just really good negotiation to get the property that cheap, or was that the market value because it was in bad shape and you had squatters in there?
I think both. The market value was probably higher than that, but because the squatters were in there, it was sitting there for a long time. And the wholesaler that picked it up negotiated a really good deal because nobody wants to touch properties with squatters.
Right. How long did the whole process take from when you closed on the property until you got the squatters out?
I think the closing on these things usually pretty quick because once title clears, you can close because it's a cash deal. Mm-hmm. The squatters took us about a month or so to get them out, but we had to do it cleanly, right? Like the day of, they had to give us the keys outside the property while it's locked, and we'd hand them the cash.
Okay.
And so, we ended up using one of our contractors / property managers at the time to help us with that transaction, and that's how we got access to the property.
So, like, did you feel like there was a lot of risk there? Because, like, what if the tenants didn't leave? Like, if they didn't accept the cash for keys? Like, what would you have done in that case?
Yeah, it was a calculated risk. We knew that we had seen videos of the properties. We hadn't seen it ourselves. We knew that there were serious problems with the properties. Like, one of the properties had mold growing from a roof leak that was a pretty massive hole that never got repaired. And we got some inside intel from the wholesaler that these ladies would take some cash.
Okay.
So we were feeling a little bit more confident. And once we paid one of them, the other one texted, they texted each other and they coordinated because they knew each other. Mm-hmm. And the other one came to us and said, hey, I also want $3,000.
Okay.
So we just did the same deal.
Awesome. All right. So you're all in at that property with the rehab for about $285,000. And you said you bought it with cash. Did you have the cash to do the rehab too?
Yes.
Okay.
We did all cash purchase and rehab.
Okay. All right. So then when you fixed it up, what did the property appraise at?
The ARV came out for both of them combined at $515,000.
Wow. That's really awesome. So when you refied, did you get the $285,000 back?
Yeah, actually, and more. So I think it was also a very good time in the market. So we were able to cash out at about 70% LTV, which gave us $350,000 back in our pocket.
Wow. And then that 350 that you have now, that's you're just basically recycling that and you're going to use that for the next deal?
Absolutely, yeah. So we stick to the Burr methodology, and so we'll take that, and we always are looking for new deals, and we'll use that cash 100% into the next deal.
Okay, awesome. I think that's awesome, and having the cash makes it a lot cheaper than having to use hard money. But if someone didn't have the 285 in cash, like they could have found another way to do this deal, right? Like with hard money or some other financing.
Absolutely, you could do a partnership, you could do private hard money loans, because the properties, one of them wasn't habitable, the other one maybe wasn't. You probably could have even gotten some type of maybe conventional loan on it, depending
Okay.
on the type of lender you're working with.
All right, so now you've got the property fixed up. What is it rented for today?
Today, the total rent of all 4 units is $4,200.
42. So it's about a little bit over $1,000 a unit.
Yes.
Okay. And what are the units like? How many bedrooms? How many baths?
Yeah, absolutely. So most of them are a 2-1, so two
Okay.
bedrooms, one bathroom. Some, I think the bigger ones are three,
Okay.
3 bed, 1 bath.
All right. And so 4,200 in rent. Let's take a look at your expenses. How much is your mortgage payment?
Our mortgage payment combined with, let's say, the escrow for taxes and insurance is about $2,900.
Okay. So after you pay the mortgage, you have $1,300 left over. And then how do you budget for repairs and vacancy and other expenses that might come up?
Absolutely. So we usually budget about 5% vacancy on a monthly basis, and we put that money aside. And then on the repairs, you can imagine these are pretty new units. So we don't expect a lot of repairs, especially in the first 3 to 4 years, but we put aside about $100 a month per unit
Okay.
for a rainy day for the month. And then another, let's say, $200 for the vacancy budget, which is conservative. So you're at $700
Okay.
a month.
I mean, that's really awesome too. When you consider that now that you've done the cash out refi, you have no money in this property at all, and it's making you $700 a month. The property is appreciating, and you're also paying down the mortgage. I mean, this is a really great deal.
Absolutely. We love it. This is one of our highlight deals. It took a lot of risk and hard work, but we got to a really good place. And the best thing is we also have happy tenants. One of our tenants that came into this property started crying when we gave her the unit. And these are brand new with quartz countertop, stainless steel appliances units in areas, that are not necessarily used to these kinds of units.
Mm-hmm.
And so people love it.
Right. Now, what about management? With you being out of town and your partner being out of town, do you manage the property yourself or do you have a property manager?
In the beginning, when we were starting, we did self-manage just purely to learn the business. But, you realize quickly that's not sustainable with a full-time day job and all the other responsibilities you have with family, etc. So we have a property manager in place today, and we use Baselane, which is a company that I work for, to manage, the collect the rent and do our bookkeeping and our banking as well.
Baselane is also a sponsor of the podcast. And as we wrap things up, why don't you tell us real quick what Baselane is and why you decided to join them?
Absolutely. I'm glad you asked. As I mentioned, I started investing in real estate about 5 years ago. And soon after I realized that property and really asset management was really time consuming, especially with a day job. And then on top of that, I had to deal with managing spreadsheets, multiple bank accounts and logins, just a lot of disjointed processes related to all of that. So all of that just ate up a lot of my time. So instead of growing the business and buying more properties, I was barely managing them, and we had no idea what the performance was. And so when I first met the founders of Baselane early on, and they told me about their vision to build an all-in-one modern banking platform that would allow somebody like me to be able to run my entire real estate business on one platform. It was really an aha moment for me. And I decided to join Baselane to help build this modern all-in-one platform that really I need to run my real estate portfolio and business, but also that I'm sure millions of other investors also need. And so today, Baselane is the number one banking platform that's tailor-made for real estate investors. And it's unique because it offers a business checking account that, again, offers these features that other banks don't have, like virtual accounts and cards, super high APY, and tons of other features within it that really help you get better organized. On top of that, we've got proprietary bookkeeping and reporting software that lets you take control of your numbers and really understand how you're performing at the unit level, at the property level. And we've got property management tools such as rent collection and lease creation, et cetera. And there's a lot more that we're building. So yeah, I'm super excited about that. I'm also happy to say that I'm a super user of Baselane. And for me, at least, my favorite aspect is that it helps me cut down on all that busy work and gives me a very clear picture of how we're performing at the property level, at the unit level.
Baselane is actually really good, and it's totally free. If you want to check it out or you want to learn more, just go to baselane.com. That's BASELANE.com. I would like to thank our sponsor for making this episode possible. It's Chaley Ridge from Ridge Lending Group. Chaley is a nationwide lender, and her specialty is helping investors finance rental properties. If you want to learn more, or maybe even have Chaley look at a deal that you're thinking about buying, you can reach out to her at ridgelendinggroup.com. That's RIDGE lendinggroup.com, NMLS 42056. Thank you so much for checking out the podcast today. I'll be back with a new episode next Tuesday. My name is Dan Lane, and this has been the Rental Income Podcast.